Hello. Hello, CGTN friends on all social media platforms. Welcome to this special Facebook live streaming at Frontline. Today we are at the Singapore Air Cargo Hub, and standing right next to me is Sam Gord, who's the head of cargo at one of the largest cargo handlers, dnata Singapore. Sam, welcome. And this week we have got some really great news in Singapore. As the PM here said, that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccines are here. Singapore has received the first batch of COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer and BioNTech. And your company is part of this Changi Ready task force that is ready to do the distribution and transportation of vaccine. And now what we understand is that we need to handle it safely and efficiently and keep in a temperature controlled environment. And what kind of work that the dnata company like yourself have been put into to make sure Singapore can be the transport hub for COVID vaccines?
Yeah, there's a lot that we do. So as part of the Changi Ready task force, that was mainly set up so that as a hub coming together with the different service providers, we could analyze our capabilities as a hub, our procedures, and what risks we have here as a hub. So we did that collectively. So analyzing capabilities can be what facilities and equipment do you have, how well trained are your staff to handle vaccines like this. For processes, we analyze the flow of goods, how would they move through the airport, whether they were coming in or out. And then analyzing the risk is about going to every handover point, every stage in that process, identifying what risks they are. In particular with vaccines, the risk is typically a temperature deviation. So we analyze that risk and then we collectively come up with ways to mitigate that risk, see what procedures we can put in place, what new technologies, equipment we can put in place to reduce the risk of a temperature deviation.
So these 12 shareholders in that task force we're talking about, it's a public and private consortium, right? So you have the Singapore Aviation Authorities, and you have the Changi Airport Group, you have handlers, cargo handlers like SAS and dnata. Who else are in this task force?
Well, yeah, the main providers, we have us as a ground handler. Ground handlers are represented. Airlines, very, very important. And we all have a different role to play. So again, when it comes to reducing risk, we have our part to play with our storage and our facility behind us. CAAS, the Aviation Authority, can assign certain aircraft bays so that they're closer to us and there's less risk on the tarmac. There are also logistic providers, freight forwarders, who are the middlemen between the carrier and the vaccine producer, and typically would collect the vaccine from someone, a vaccine producer, and get it to us. We then get it to the aircraft. So each with a special role to play.
So today we have this rare opportunity to go behind the scenes and see some of your facilities. So would you like to introduce to us where we are right now?
Yeah, so welcome everyone to the Cool Chain, dnata Singapore's pharma and vaccine handling facility. We've been operating here for 7 years. Where we're standing now is what we call our staging area. So for a vaccine that's being imported, this will be the last stage in our handling. If it was being exported, it will be the first stage. So the purpose of this
for example, for the vaccine imported from the aircraft, and it will be shipped here, right?
Yeah, so this is what we call the landside area. So this is where the trucks come.
Okay.
So for an import, this would mean that when the vaccine is being collected from us, we can, under temperature control, allow people to come to this area. They can double check that everything's okay, do their own temperature checks, condition checks, before putting it on a temperature controlled truck.
Right, yeah.
So this is just either the very first or very last stage. It's a quick process. Goods typically aren't in here very long. It's just a quick check under temperature control, but it means we can do those checks without contaminating the main facility. So it is cordoned off, it's sectioned off.
And in there is the storage
Through here is the storage. So behind
Let's
this
go
door
take a look. Yeah.
is where we would have longer term storage. Now, typically we don't refer to ourselves as a warehouse.
Yeah.
We call ourselves a terminal.
Yeah.
And much like the passenger terminal, people don't hang around there for too long. Everyone is in waiting. Either they've just arrived or they're just about to take off. It works the same with cargo. So goods are typically brought here on average maybe 8 to 10 hours before departure, sometimes a lot sooner. So it's not here for too long, but it's our job to make sure that when it is with us, it's in the right temperature, it's safe, it's prepared accordingly and good to go on the aircraft.
I do notice here is cooler than outside. What's the temperature here?
Here's a little bit cooler. We're now at 16 degrees. So I know there's been a lot of talk lately about the requirements of certain vaccines being super cold.
Yeah.
But typically most vaccines are at 15 to 25 degree storage or 2 to 8 degree storage. So this room is actually adjustable. We've been doing some work with some goods that we need to keep at 15 to 25 degrees, which is what the room is set at, and you can see we're in our sweet spot at 16 degrees at the moment.
Right.
But if we're doing any work or we need to store goods at different temperatures, each of the modular rooms you see behind you are for different commodities to avoid contamination, but they're also for different temperatures, so we can store a multiple of goods at different temperatures at the same time.
If maybe we can show you guys, there are like different rooms here, and so you said like different storage for different commodities. You have fish here, you have meat and freezer, flowers and pharmaceutical. I think one thing we need to point it out is like companies like yourself have been handling vaccine and pharmaceutical products for a long time. So you already have the infrastructure and trained personnel to swim into this COVID reaction, right?
We do. So this facility has been operating for just over 7 years. The team have remained largely the same. The training has changed as we've learned more and more about vaccines, and as legislation changes, we've learned a lot more, and we've adapted our training to suit that. But we actually have vaccines in here today, not COVID vaccines, but we have vaccines in storage at the moment.
Show us the pharma room.
We can show you some of the pharma rooms. So we have a few. So we have our freezer room here that we can see is now at negative 10 degrees.
Okay.
So that's for storing very cold goods.
Negative 10 degrees.
Negative 10. What you'll notice about these doors as well, they're soft. There's a reason for that. They're very fast moving as well. So these doors move at 1 meter per second. That allows us to make sure that there's less risk of a temperature deviation as we open and close doors.
Right. Ready? -10. Well, for people who live in the northern hemisphere in Beijing, what's the temperature now? Ooh, it's cold.
So you can feel it quite quickly. It's very, very cold.
Yeah.
And you can even see, so even though we're at 10 degrees in here, inside here, you can tell is even colder than 10 degrees. So you can see ice forming on the box. Inside here, much colder than 10 degrees.
Right. So what kind of goods needs to be in that condition?
Well, we all know about the Pfizer COVID vaccine, recommended temperatures negative 70. So it's boxes like this. There's technology inside with dry ice gel packs, and they're packed in a way that what we call suspended in dry ice. So there's a 360 degree environment of dry ice around the good. And typically, dry ice is frozen at about negative 78, negative 80 degrees. So that can remain inside at a temperature of negative 70, even if left in ambient or room temperatures for a few days. So our job is, if we keep it at negative 10, negative 20, we can prolong the life of the internal temperature.
Right.
So that's our job here.
But the other rooms, you all have the name of the commodity. This one you don't really have but it just says freezer. So you mix the different commodities?
We don't. This is for pharmaceuticals.
This is for pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And early on you mentioned that the pharma rooms you have different wall with different purpose.
We do, yeah. So these pharma rooms in particular, built with a different material. So you'll notice that they're silver walls back there. We'll open the door, we'll have a look. So we're at 2 to 8 degrees, and we're right in our sweet spot again at 5 degrees. So that means everything's going well.
Yeah.
So we have manual checks multiple times per day, but also there's a real-time monitoring system in place. So if the temperature deviates too much one way or the other, our team in here get an alert to let them know there's an issue, and they can react immediately to that. But if we look at this room, for example, we have some vaccines in here today. But yeah, these walls are antibacterial, built with silver ion technology. They're antibacterial for over 50 years. They last a long time. And you can see behind us all different types of pharmaceuticals. I think what we have here are testing kits, and at the back we've got some vaccines there as well. But just for short-term storage, they'll only be here for a few hours before we prepare them for the aircraft.
So the PM Lee in Singapore has said that Singapore wished to be not only like we're buying a lot of vaccine, wish to be the hub for vaccine for the region.
Yeah.
Do you see that other countries would use that? Because I mean, don't you people want like import directly to their country for to cut the middle?
I think they will, and it really depends on the capabilities of each country or city within that country. Singapore's relatively easier; it's a smaller city-state.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about places like the Philippines or Indonesia, thousands of islands, each with different capabilities. Somewhere like Singapore could be used to hold those vaccines for a long period in the correct temperatures, and they could distribute as required. Some of these places might not have the capability to store so many in the right temperature.
And what's the shelf life for those vaccines? How long can they store in the...
Well, it changes. So as a vaccine, you've got to keep it -70. As soon as it comes out of -70, if that goes into 15 to 25 degrees, it really shortens, I think, to just a few days at the most. You've got the Sinovac vaccine out of China. Now, that temperature needs to be kept at 2 to 8 degrees, and it can last for a very long time. If you bring that to room temperatures, I think it lasts a few weeks. You've got the Moderna vaccine, which is actually a -20 vaccine, so not as stringent as the Pfizer vaccine, but again, it will last 6 months to a year at that temperature, -20. But when you bring it to room temperatures, it just decreases the shelf life, and it needs to be used quite quickly.
Okay. What else is here that you would like to showcase to us?
Okay, well, there's a lot of technology. Excuse me. There's a lot of technology around us that you can't really see. Well, I said earlier about that if the temperature of any of these rooms deviates beyond what we've set it at, we get an alarm. So the first alarm is the team here will get a text message. Computer systems send out alerts, and we react. We also have 2 backup systems in our chillers. So there's 2 systems running with one clicking in, one clicking out. So if we ever have an issue, there's always a system for backup, and there's a 3rd generator outside as well. So we can't afford for this place to have any power outage. So we've got round the back, actually, we have more areas for storage. So we can scale up if we get a huge influx of vaccines. It's very easy for us to scale up. We have procedures in place where we can repurpose rooms for vaccine storage, and we have bigger storage around the back if you'd like to go have a look.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's go for a walk. Just mind your step as we walk along here. So you'll notice that a lot of this is manual pushing. That is on purpose. So all the equipment that operates in here, none of it gives off any fumes. The forklift is electric. We try and use manual as much as possible. There's a few reasons for that. These don't break down. So, okay, you need to use a little bit of muscle power to get things from here to here, but this will never break down, so we're never going to have an issue. All right, so if you follow me up the stairs.
So Sam told me earlier, all these rollers is to make rolling the transportation easier. So a big container, just need 2 workers to push the containers because there's all little rollers on the floor.
So similar to the other area where we were before, but that's for what we call loose cargo. This is for what we call unitized cargo. So this has been built up and prepared to go on an aircraft or recently off an aircraft. So these pallets you see here fit into the cargo hold of an aircraft. These are pallets. Here we're storing at 15 degrees. Behind the door over here we're storing the same pallets but at different temperature. So we can see they're at 5 degrees, so we're a bit colder. And we also have specialized containers here. What's important for pharmaceuticals is quite often they come in what we call active containers. This is an example of one.
Maybe the cameraman can show you.
This is an example of an active container. So this is built to go into an aircraft, and this will actually regulate the temperature inside as well. So it's basically a fridge unit. We can store goods inside. It runs on battery power. Dry ice, we can see the temperature by pressing the light. So at the moment we're at 5 degrees. We have a dry ice top-up box here, and this will help regulate the temperature no matter what's going on around it. It's a very, very important bit of equipment that we have for handling pharmaceuticals.
Right. You earlier you also mentioned that you introduced cool dollies, which
Yes.
is for last mile transportation, right?
Yeah, we did. So as part of the process of trying to become a better provider for the pharmaceutical industry, we have to look at what we can improve at all times. Where are our risks and where can we minimize those risks? For most handling agents like us on the airport, the biggest risk has always been the journey from temperature controlled facility like this to aircraft. So we have to get it on the tarmac to the plane. A lot of airports are very, very big. Changi Airport, for example, for us to get to Terminal 4 can be 45 minutes. In the open, on a hot day in Singapore, 35 degrees perhaps. So that's always been our biggest risk. We've made a huge investment in a facility like this, in training our teams. But then we've always had a bit of a risk that typically was mitigated by insulated blankets and dry ice, all sorts. But to reduce that risk even more, we designed and built cool dollies that allow us to put a whole pallet like this inside, and we can transport that to the aircraft while maintaining the temperature. So really that closes any risk gap for us. So if you think about a vaccine being exported from Singapore, it might come from a facility in Tuas where a lot of them are located. In temperature control, it goes to a temperature controlled truck, to a temperature controlled facility like the cool chain, now a temperature controlled dnata cool dolly, then onto an aircraft. We would actually tell the captain of that aircraft, hey, you've got some vaccines in the hold, and we'd tell him what temperature he can adjust the cargo hold to try and keep the temperature right, even when it's in the air as well.
So obviously now we're at the tail of 2020. This year, as we know, the passenger traffic has come to a halt, but actually cargo has gone up quite a lot. So I read that as of 1st of December, the cargo traffic tripled in Singapore compared to a year ago. So how has COVID affected your business?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. So we're handling less aircraft. However, our tonnage has gone up. So a lot of those aircraft have changed. Where you used to have a lot of low-cost carriers perhaps doing 50 to 70 flights a day, a lot of that has stopped. But we're getting a lot more freighter aircraft, big Boeing 747s that we can get 100 tons of cargo in. And a lot of carriers were quick to react, and we started to put cargo on cabin seats. Making use of all the space available. And then further on from that, a lot of carriers have actually removed the seats, and we're putting cargo directly on the cabin floor now as well. So making use of the whole aircraft where you might have had 300 passengers before and cargo in the belly, now the whole aircraft is full of cargo where passengers used to sit.
So 2021, you think the biggest task for the world and for your business is to distribute all these COVID vaccines to everyone in need, isn't it?
It is. It's going to be a tough task. We're going to need to stay focused. I do think it will get easier over time. There was a bit of concerns to start with when everyone started hearing about negative 70 degrees. And then as we learned more, we realized, okay, transportation temperatures are different. We also have to remember that there are new vaccines that are going to be coming out on the market that don't need that super deep freeze temperatures as well. So I think as time goes on, we're going to get better, we're going to get more experience, but I think the vaccines aren't going to need that sort of deep freeze anymore, which is going to help, especially other ports where they don't have the capabilities that we have to handle the vaccine as well.
Right. Okay. So we were just speaking to Sam Gord, who's the head of cargo at dnata Singapore, as one of the cargo handlers that's operating out of Singapore and many other ports in the world. So we are relying on these guys to distribute the COVID-19 vaccine safely and efficiently. Hopefully we will beat COVID the soonest we can.
You're in safe hands with us.
Yes.
No problem.
On that note, we'll end today's live streaming. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.